Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Barry Kostrinsky, and this is the beginning of something new for our group. This is an artist talk. I know many of you from other talks that I've done. And right now we have a 1 hour format. And by the way, everybody, we are working on Mondays for July and August. Come September, I'll move it to Tuesdays because I don't want to be right before the ATOA talk and have people make choices. So I'll keep this Monday for the first few months, and then I'll switch come July, whether early July, like that. And look forward to all of you sharing and being a part. I do like how everybody sort of jumps in with ideas and raises questions or makes comments. It's always sort of a very active and a very organic part of talks that I've done. So I want to thank you all for your time and also for your input to come, and welcome Louis Lamboy, who I know as Zimad. Zimad, a graffiti artist, and graffiti is a very big word. Who knows how many F's, how many I's, and how many T's? Thank God for spell check. But it is a big word because there are a lot of different artists underneath it. It's like if you call somebody a realist painter, you could break that down, even hyperrealism, so many different degrees. Graffiti is no different, maybe even more degrees and variations. I think we're all pretty familiar with the writing, the lettering, the wild style, that kind of stuff. There is so much more. And I think it's great that graffiti is getting its name in the last 20 years. It's coming to the forefront. But also people are starting to see it's a lot more than just the lettering. And I think Zimad's a great example of this. Quite a technically skilled artist with brush, with airbrush or with spray can. And like any other artist, he has a language. He uses his symbols that have meaning to him personally, uses iconographic images, as many artists, both graffiti and not, do, and they repeat it. And that becomes, and as well, that becomes their sort of language. But also, what I respect a lot about Zimad and many artists is when they change their form up. And Zimad has done that over the course I've known him, and he's really pushed some limits. And I think, I'll stop and let Zimad present, but I think you'll see a variety of things. And even if you don't, in the 30 minutes, know that there are a lot of tools in Zimad's toolbox, and he really knows how to use them. And I'll also say, as another note, one of the nicest guys I've met. It's always nice to meet an artist you respect for what they make. It's another thing to meet an artist that you respect for who he is. And Zimad's just a good guy. It's that simple. It sort of says it all. And so thanks for coming, Zimad.
I'm humbled. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm grateful for everybody who's coming out to see what I'm going to talk about. So we could jump right into it, right?
We can go right into it. You
All right.
Share.
All right. So in 1970, I'm going to pop up the screenshot here so you guys can see. All right. So I started doing graffiti in 1979 at the age of 14. And these are some of my earlier works right here. Let me move this guy over. Okay, so what you're seeing here is at the age of 14 to around 17, I wasn't just doing the everyday graffiti, which is scribbling on everything, but I was also interested in the format of doing lettering styles because it's structure to me. And these are some of my earlier works at the age of 18. That's the #1 train. And these are a couple of schoolyards. I got really good with an aerosol can at a young age. So I started booking a lot of jobs in the 80s. This is one of them right here. This is a TV show called Steam Pipe Alley. It used to air on Channel 9. And I did the whole entire backdrop for the show. At the same time, I was doing a lot of stuff for like MTV. I've done a couple of TV commercials, and I was really getting my name out there in not with graffiti, but using the elements of graffiti in a way, like using the spray can to actually get me gigs. And this right here on the bottom is these two guys right here from the group the Ramones. And they actually came out with a behind the scenes Ramones tape, and my work was actually in there as well. There you go to this here. Now, over here, I have, this is Joey from New Kids on the Block. It was one of my clients, was New Kids on the Block back in the 80s, around 84 to 88. And I was doing a lot of wardrobe as well as backdrops for a lot of performers. My work also came out in one of their little trading cards that they had. So these things were pretty much all over the world. Besides the New Kids on the Block, I was also doing work for Will Smith, Jazzy Jeff, Madonna, Anita Baker, Patti LaBelle, Lawrence Taylor, along with many more that I probably can't remember right now. Here's a backdrop on this side that I did for America's Next Top Model. And these are the models actually voguing in front of my mural. And it aired on TV. And now and then I'll see it on episodes that are on rerun. I'm going to whiz through them because I only have a half an hour to talk. But it gives you an idea of the work that I've done over the years, not just graffiti, but I went pretty much commercial, and my work traveled throughout the world. I mean, this right here on the first page is a pair, these are Air Jordans that I custom made for Nike, and they were limited edition made. These at the bottom here were only 150 made, sold out within an hour in France. And other sneakers, they've shown up in like all the Nike stores, and you can't get these anymore. They're like very rare. On the next picture, this is Jamel Shabazz, and he's a really well-known photographer. He's actually got a documentary right now on Showtime, which shows a lot of his photos from the 80s. This photo shoot here, that's me right here. This photo shoot was used for the New York Cosmos soccer team, and the billboards were all over Europe. So this billboard right here is somewhere in London. There was many billboards throughout like Europe. This one just happens that somebody recognized me even with the mask on and sent me the photo from Europe. And yeah, I'm grateful for that person. If not, I wouldn't have had it.
Online, it's like, I think you count.
In case you have your audio on, just be aware if you have somebody speaking in the back. It could be. I'll give a check, see if I can figure out who it is.
It's probably me. I can't find how to turn it off.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, you did it. Thanks, Sandra.
The first page here is Red Bull had contacted me. They Googled me, they found me and asked if I would do a canvas cooler for a special event that they was having. And this is my cooler, which I painted all sides. And the funny thing about Red Bull and being part of the Red Bull team, they actually sought you out. I had a couple of friends of mine trying to contact them, and they didn't want to hear from them. And it was kind of funny because they want what they want, and they don't like to be solicited by any artist or anybody, which is kind of weird. But like at the same time, I was kind of like honored that they found me out and had me do this. The second page here, I got hired to do this whole entire backdrop, which was for the movie Now You See Me. They have, like, I believe in the series, the 3 movies made, but this is the first movie. And yeah, I did this whole entire thing, which was made especially for me to destroy, actually. On this first page, this is, I got contacted by the US consulate to go to Ecuador and paint for their arts festival and represent the US. So I got to fly out to Ecuador and do these murals with the local artists as well as speak at their festival. I don't speak Spanish, even though I'm half Spanish. So I had a translator translate everything I was telling the people of Ecuador. And then also the very next day, the next day of painting, I came out in the newspaper. And this page here is NV Hotel, which is in Geneva, Switzerland. And I got hired to go out there. They bought two paintings of mine. These are the two paintings. Or this is, yeah, this may be one of two. And they bought the two paintings. And then after buying the paintings, since the hotel name was NV, NYV, NVY, N and Y was huge lettering with a small V. And the whole concept was to have a hotel that had the same feel of New York City. So they hired me and Mears to go out there and paint within their hotel. And this is one of my pieces as well, which is based off of a book called On the Road. And this is their little reading room with like notes up on top of the chandelier, and pretty really nice looking hotel.
Zimad, On the Road,
Yes.
are we talking Jack Kerouac?
Huh?
The book On the Road, are we
Yes.
talking, is that Jack Kerouac?
I believe so. Yes. Yes, it is. It was recommended to me, and when I read it, I actually did the piece on it because the people in the hotel knew exactly what it was, and they were gung-ho. When we did these murals in Switzerland, there was no sketches, there was no drawings. When we got out there, that's when we seen the walls, and the same day we actually started drawing designs for each wall. So it's kind of like going, and it's kind of that spontaneous working works really well with me, because being from the background of graffiti, everything I did was pretty much spontaneous without drawings or outlines, because when you're doing graffiti in the cover of darkness, you cannot see a paper to actually use as a guideline. You had to do it from memory and just go straight on the wall. And a lot of graffiti artists learn that, and it's a useful tool for me because I don't need too much reference when I do a lot of my work.
Interesting.
This right here, State Farm had hit me up along with two other artists, both artists I also know and worked with in the past. And we did these four huge canvases, and you can see from the image here, the scale of these canvases. We painted all four of them within 8 hours during a Jennifer Lopez concert. So she's on stage here, and we're actually right behind the crowd over here. And they actually announced us a couple of times from the stage to let people know that we were back there painting murals. These murals also, a lot of them were thawed up on the spot while we was eating breakfast before we went to work. Oh, I did this one already. On Project Runway All Stars, is a television show about fashion, and me, Mears, and Sen 2 actually are on season 3, episode 3 or 4, and we consulted all of the designers in the show, and we actually got to be on the show. So every now and then I do catch this on television as well in rerun. And we showed all of the designers pretty much techniques and how to use aerosol, because their challenge was to design clothing with the coloring being all aerosol. On this first page is a job I did for the hospital for special surgery. And this is in their Brooklyn office. If anybody happens to be in the HSS in Brooklyn and see this mural, it's actually my work. It's the first time I ever did anything digitally. And I had some help, like verbally on step-by-step how to do it. And this is the end result of this vinyl, which is up in the hospital. This here is a handball court I did for a school in Bushwick. I did this handball court about 6 years ago, and it still looks as fresh as day one. They really, I mean, the work should stay up there forever. I haven't got a call about touching up anything. Yeah.
Zimad, I once read about Los Angeles having problems with their murals because it was a lot of money to go ahead and restore them. Am I right to assume that when a graffiti mural is done outside, that it only has so many years to live, and that eventually don't like 99% of them disappear?
I have a wall right now in the Bronx that I did for a garden, and it's been up for 22 years. The wall is starting to crumble, but you can actually still see the mural behind it. And I actually like that look of decay. It's kind of like it goes hand in hand with the work itself, like being an outside mural and having age to it. They've asked me to actually go back and do some work on it or to redo it, but I feel like 20, 21, 22 years on the wall, I'll wait for it to fade a little more before I decide to go out there. And it's also the spray paint you use. When you use an aerosol, if you use cheap aerosol, within 2 years, the colors all fade, and it can fade to nothing. So I use the better brands that will last 20, 30 years on the wall. The wall will break before the actual mural. Here's another mural I did in this one on the first page is done in Bushwick. I did this mural within, I would say, 10 hours. And it's all aerosol, and it's a maybe 2.5-story building, and just worked all day on it. This one I did have sketches for. I went out there with a plan, actually. And I did several of these throughout Brooklyn.
Zimad, will you open it up for us? And, looking at the piece with the mushrooms, tell us what the imagery means to you. So, in short, I could say why the mushrooms, but what's your meaning? And not just the mushrooms, anything else you want to dissect.
Well, this character is a character that I based on Egyptian art, where they usually have birds as heads or dogs as heads, they're gods. And I started playing around with these characters, which I call alien characters. You'll see more in my canvas work later on, where I do these creatures on canvas, and I call them the creators. And they are the creators of they all have their own specific job. Like one is the creator of the universe, another one could be the creator of the tree of life. And I also hide symbols within a lot of these paintings that I do on these. The mushroom, ever since I was doing graffiti in the early 80s, and through most of my career, I started out doing the mushroom as one of my letters, as the letter A. because it had that triangle kind of feel as a A. And I just continually I do mushrooms now to remind me also and bring me back to those times when I was doing it in the graffiti.
And the crown on top, is that a reference to Basquiat?
It's a reference to, in the graffiti world, the whole concept behind graffiti was to become a king and within your peers. And to be a king, you would have to do a lot of things. You would have to know every element of your craft, and you would have to get your name up everywhere, wherever you can, to be considered a legend or a king. And I use the king like crown symbol almost jokingly. I use it on a lot of my stuff because I always never considered myself a king or legend in the game, although I done stuff that may be considered like legendary or even bringing the level of the game to the next level. So I always there's quite a few of my characters that wear the crown.
Well, if it's not referencing Basquiat, you're actually using it for the same reason he did. I'm pretty sure he was crowning himself when he put
Yes.
the crown on.
Yes, and it's actually in the graffiti world, and he was a graffiti artist as well. And it's kind of funny because I work with his partner now. His partner is Al Diaz, and he phrased it. He coined the phrase "samo" with Basquiat, and Basquiat went the route of doing canvases, while Al went the route of still doing graffiti. And now Al Diaz is actually making a name for himself in the gallery world, using the samo logo and name, which is great. The guy is really humble, and he has stories about Basquiat and him like you'll be in awe, really. This piece here, I actually created the can with concrete, and I did about 100 of these. I don't have too many left, and what I do is I customize them for people. I like doing a lot of nature, as you see in the first page here with the mushrooms, and here with the moss. I try to incorporate a lot of nature in a lot of the pieces that I do, apart and still keeping to like a little bit of the feel of graffiti still within the pieces, but they're not really considered graffiti. You know, I took it to a point where yes, there's graffiti in there, but it's more of an illustration or more of a sculpture more than a graffiti piece. I've been working a lot the past couple of years with concrete, doing a lot of concrete sculptures and dabbling in sculpture work and just new stuff.
You know, that one image of your can, you know, brings
Yeah.
back memories of like Jasper John's Savrin coffee can with his brushes in it. And it'll be a sort of interesting, you know, comparison. This was 1956 sort of pop art. And you're doing the same thing. You're taking your materials, as opposed to brushes, you got a can, and you know, you're sort of putting it on a pedestal in a way. So
Yeah, it's I never had it put to me that way, but yeah, it's actually 100% correct. It's just it's the newer age can,
exactly.
you know, not the coffee can that's being used. These are some illustration pieces that I did on wood panels. They're mixed medium, so there's acrylic, airbrush, marker, spray paint as well on these pieces, and it just shows like I'm still using the elements of like graffiti in there as a design, and then using other things that, like, say for instance this skull right here, I'll show you later on, but I have like this little kind of clay skull that I use as references. So And then the crystals, I have crystals throughout my whole house. So a lot of these objects I will use within my pieces. This was a series that I was playing off of social media. The Instagram logo, as well as the Facebook logo, was a spoof on how social media has taken over in a way more than going out and actually seeing art. You just see it now on a computer screen, and it's just it's kind of humorous to me, like to see that. So I kind of spoofed it while doing my own wooden social media pieces. And as you see, the mushrooms are back again. Like I do put them on a lot of the works I do. I have a couple more here. This piece and this piece, I went back a little bit to my roots, going back to a little bit more harder street graffiti. I wanted to keep the paintings within their own color form, because the whole idea was to do a spectrum in a gallery show where you see the red painting, the orange painting, the purple, the blue, all the way around the gallery. So it actually, from a distance, it looks like a rainbow of paintings going around the room. But as individually, you could see them and see, not just the color, but all the detail. And a lot of these things relate to me, where these are the inks that I used back in the day. This is the Red Bull that I got, offered to do that cooler for them. These are the cans of that I used back in the 80s to vandalize, and the trains that I also hit. So it's kind of like it has elements that mean things to me. At the same time, I'm keeping within the spectrum and changing. On some of them, they might not be that color, but I change them to that color to work with the field. These are also mixed medium. These are actually aerosol, acrylic, marker. I even have oil paint on my pieces. I use the oil paint as a last resort, because you can't paint over oil or enamel because it'll crack in time. So I use them as I gesso the spots that I do oil on them. And those are the spots that I rework on top. So there's many layers here. Now this goes back to the characters I was putting on in the street. And these are paintings that I've done with the same alien characters. And these are the paintings that have a little bit more symbolism in them. This one's called Mother Nature. And you see it, the character actually creating the waterfalls in the universe. And I call the background universe. Before there was pour paint, or painting, or whatever they call it now, where you pour all these colors onto a canvas and mishmash them. I was actually doing these probably five to 8 years before that concept even came to play and became popular now. There you go. Also on this one, you see the play with the crown again. And there's a lot of details in these things. Like this one is actually, it's hidden here, but it's actually holding the moon right here. These are two more. This first one I sold for $10,000 at a gallery show. It was probably one of, and this is a small painting. It was one of very detailed and a lot of layering. You can see, like in the background here, it has the flower of life. And at the time, I was actually into a lot of sacred geometry and incorporating it into my works. When this sold, and it was one of the first out of the series to sell, it inspired me to actually create more of them. It took a while It took maybe 2 years before I sold one of these. And I think it was more about the understanding, and people didn't really understand what they were about. This one here is called the Tree of Life, which has also the Tree of Life symbol here, as well as the all-seeing eye, and the planet Earth is in the belly of the alien who is creating life.
And in the bottom right, that symbol is used in Jewish mysticism.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's the 10 Sfirot.
Is it a Kabbalah? A Kabbalah?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Kabbalah. And
Yeah.
no, it's
I also have these blue jays that are kind of mixed into the background that are actually flying upside down. So they're in the dark space here, which is the part of the upside down, which is another universe. And the last two I have for you guys is, so you can see like where I started doing the illegal graffiti and going into the industry, like getting my stuff out there. And I think that helped a lot. People see me worldwide, and I get contact all the time. I do auctions in Europe, and you can see like my advancement in my techniques, which a lot of this stuff I actually was self-taught. I taught myself how to use an aerosol can. I taught myself how to do acrylic, airbrush, oil paint. I had pointers here and there, and now that we have like Google and YouTube, I can actually learn faster on how to use these things. But I used to just get the stuff and worry about how to use it later on. And every painting I do now is actually mixed medium. This piece here and this piece here, as well as the feathers here, are oil paint. Well, everything else in this painting is acrylic. So you know, a lot of people told me oil and acrylic will never work. I've actually made it work. And, you know, it's just, you know, not listening to the can'ts and just do it and experiment, have fun with it. And that's what I've done pretty much my whole career.
how did you develop your hand? You have such a fine hand. I mean, I'm looking at the Yoda in the right and everything else, and we saw images of you with a fine brush, which is not something we always think of when we think of a graffiti writer or a graffiti artist. How were you drawing at age 6? What'd you do very young as a child?
I used to travel with my mom to my grandmother's house in Canarsie, Brooklyn. It was a 2-hour train ride. So during the train ride, she used to buy the daily news to read. And I used to always swipe the comic section. So at the age of 5 and 6, I was drawing Beetle Bailey and Dick Tracy. So I was actually learning or teaching myself at a young age as well how to draw cartoon characters. And it's a form of illustration that I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but it was looking exactly like what I've seen on a paper. And I think from that, from the age 5 and 6 all the way up to around 12, 13, and then I discovered graffiti and fell in love with that art form because it was all around me. And from that point on, I wanted to experiment more, and I think I was ready to paint. Like, I don't think I ever even painted. I only drew as a child, and the painting came from graffiti. And once I learned how to do spray paint, then I wanted to learn how to work with acrylic and learn how to work with an airbrush and watercolor and oil. You know, those things, yeah, they all came in order. And it was only from me watching. It was basically me watching and seeing, like, seeing what I seen and kind of replicating it, as well as just pursuing it. I mean, this piece right here, this piece came.
Oh, I stopped the screen sharing. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to jump into it again to show the image?
Oh, sure. Let me see, what do I have to do?
Just go back to share screen. Just start it over.
Oh, where am I? I mean, we could, here we go. I'll go in again. You guys see me?
Yep. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So this piece here was very challenging. I did this as a commission for one of your clients, Barry, and I thank you for that. This piece came after I had treatment for cancer in my neck. I had radiation and chemo, which pretty much I didn't think I was going to be able to paint the same way that I painted. Like I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler after the treatment that I went through. And when Barry came to me and said a client liked my work and wanted a piece done by me, the only request was that I added Yoda in the mix, and I accepted. It took me about 3 to 4 times longer that it would normal if I was 100%, but it actually challenged me. And after doing it, I was confident to be like, I'm going to get my painting game back, and I did. No, thank you for that, Barry. If not, I may still be drawing comic strip cartoons.
Well, it was a great experience getting you the commission. I'll say we did the ultimate wrong thing. We actually, instead of selling a piece that he had made, we came up with a commission. We came up maybe with color, some of this sort of universe background. The woman had a grandson who liked Yoda, and we actually pieced something together. Of course, Zimad did it all. He just heard the little stuff. There was at one point the lady said, "Oh, I don't like dogs" or something. So we stopped.
Oh, yes.
We stopped doing a dog, and it
Yes.
was totally nuts to do. But in the end, not only did he do a beautiful piece, which I knew he would, but the person really liked it. And that's sort of the danger of doing an open commission. They could say
she actually didn't know what she was getting.
She didn't know what she was getting, and no question about it. That was a blow-away painting. You really did a great job. First, everybody, we want to thank you, Zimad.
I mean, I really wanted to give you like a little sense of what I've done. And since I don't know anybody on the panel, but like it gives you an idea of where I come from and all of the professional stuff as well as my painting stuff, like where I'm at now.
Very nicely done. Let me open it up to questions. Any questions or comments, anything you'd like to say? Go ahead, Emily.
I'm interested in your lettering that you first started with. How did you get interested in that? And because I'm very interested in lettering also. And do you feel that the lettering helped you with the way you interspaced things?
Yes.
I see it almost as lettering.
I got interested in lettering at a young age from watching Batman, you know, where all the pow, bam, wow.
Right.
And it was a structure that was kind of like, it was like building blocks. Like you could see the dimension, you could see the side of the letter as well as the front of the letter. And I played with fonts and actually used the fonts to actually switch them up and make them wilder, so they would be accepted in the graffiti world and not other graffiti artists be like, "Oh, that's garbage, let me go over it." But like it was kind of how do you say it, people who build buildings and architecture. The lettering to me is an architecture. It's just building blocks in different angles to create lettering.
But a lot of graffiti lettering is your straight bubble, little back going on, little diagonal, very simple. Your lettering is going in and out of space the way a good painting goes in and out of space. So you're not just setting up a front field and going back. And I think that's what Emily is responding to. And I do see what she said. I see your compositions now as sort of those letters meandering and moving in and out, sort of
Oh, yeah.
worming in and out.
It actually, in graffiti, it's almost like it's a part of hip hop. So the letters are actually dancing. When there's an arrow coming from the front and going behind, it's actually like a dance move, like with your hands, and it's the same flow that you try to keep throughout the whole piece and keep it moving. It's to have your eye be like, where's that arrow going? And you'll see the arrow dip in the back and then all of a sudden cut through a letter. It's actually got that movement. And it was, for me, I was interested in that and the movement of the piece. So it's just not a flat piece with 3D on it, but if you really look at it, it actually has a movement to it and a dance.
Very nice. Any other thoughts or comments from anybody? Olga Alexander put in the chat, how do you get over an intimidating wall? I guess she's implying, Olga, you're asking, how does he, I mean, you were working in the dark in the old days, you were going into the where the trains are, you were coming up against other crews.
Yes.
That might have a fight with you.
There was a lot of dangerous elements when I was starting out doing it as a teenager. Like you're running into train tunnels, which is dangerous in itself. I wouldn't do that now, but like the adrenaline rush that you get from just being in the location that you're in, and you're there illegally. I've scaled buildings to get to rooftops that were facing trains. So, the million people that come on the train daily back and forth would see my work. And it was my whole idea of advertising myself. Back in the day, there wasn't as much surveillance and cameras and, now I can't afford to do that kind of thing because they'll find me right away. I mean, if you Google my name, you could really find me fast. So, I mean, back then we could get away with that kind of thing. And the one time I did get caught, and I believe it was at the age of 18, I was doing a whole handle court right across the street from the precinct. So I wasn't too smart. But at the same time, I had the guts to actually just go and do it because it's part of the game. You go out there with your cans expecting to get caught or expecting the worst to happen so you could be on your guard when you're ready to go, do what you do. As far as scale is concerned, I mean, at the age of 15 and 16, I was looking up at these giant trains in train yards and tunnels, which had little lighting, but what we would do was mark our spray cans. So what was the fill, what was the outline, what was the highlight. So even though you don't know what colors, or the colors could be very close together in shading, on the bottom of the cans, it would have like outline, double outline, shines, fill in. And we would run in the tunnels, like stay in there for like 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes we would get chased out by what we call was work bums. And the work bums were just the transit workers that worked at night. And we called them work bums because they were always pitch black from all the soot from working within the tunnels. We would get chased out by them. We would get chased out by transit police. We would get chased out by rival gangs. And when we got chased out by them, they really chased us. They would chase us for blocks to make sure that we never came back. And the following week, we would be back in there. So it was fun times, dangerous times. I mean, there was one time I almost got electrocuted in the 5 and 2 tunnels, where the train, the bottom platform that you walk in, when you're walking in these tunnels, those things are about up to your chest. So you're reaching up just to get like 3 feet of space on the train. And I accidentally put my hand where it was under the lip of the train and got shocked. And my whole arm got paralyzed. So for the next 2 hours, I actually didn't go to the hospital. I continued doing my graffiti. I was there with my boys. And for the rest of the night, I had my hand like this in my jacket while I continued to go all the way down the run of the train while my friends were inside, opening every door and writing inside the train. And then when we got to either end, we switched and they went outside and I went in. And then we would just meet up at some point to get out of there. But we never left with like any paint left. We made sure that we emptied out everything before leaving. And it was for us, it was at the time, it was a successful night. I mean, these are works that have been published now in graffiti books and magazines. And we didn't think about it then, but we were part of a movement that to this day, I mean, that movement, I started in 79. The movement started somewhere in 69, 70 doing graffiti. I missed 10 years, so too young, but like that movement is still going strong today throughout the whole world. It's probably one of the biggest art movements in the world. I mean, have you heard of any art movements that are going strong that is like 40 to 50 years under its belt still? So
the influence on fashion, on sneakers, clothing,
yes.
and then of course Banksy. Banksy is right in line,
Yeah.
of course, with what you're doing. And yes, many artists have tweaked it, made it their own, and aerosol's totally accepted. Whereas I don't think in 1960 any museum director would have looked at anything in aerosol, or any curator would have considered anybody, back then.
It would be considered vandalism. I mean, right now, the next level of graffiti is street art. I mean, it doesn't have any lettering form, but it does have characters and backgrounds, and it really looks pretty. That is just the next evolution of graffiti.
And explain what you mean when you say street art. What are you referring to?
Well, street art, Banksy would be considered a street artist / stencil artist. And any street art, it doesn't have any kind of lettering form. So any art that you see on walls nowadays, I mean, most of it looks like it's generated in a computer and put on a wall. I mean, it's a different game. Sometimes it's actually projected onto a wall at nighttime, and then the artist comes and paints it during the day. And for the most part, street art is legal, and where graffiti is illegal. It's an act of vandalism. So we never really called ourselves graffiti artists. We were always called writers, because what we did was write our name. So when we talk to each other and to another writer, we would be like, "What do you write?" So you would switch off names if you felt like you wanted to tell the person the name, or you'd be like Banksy, where hardly anybody knows who this guy actually is. Or even if he's a team, like he has a team, a crew that does the stuff for him.
Very nice, Louis. Any other thoughts or questions? I think another round of applause. Louis, very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you came from an angle we're not all familiar with, but you came with all the tools and content that we're all familiar with. And so it's nice to see the sort of crossover. It really is the same game. And Olga did ask, how do you clean the tips of the spray cans? Is it something you just replace and get a new one?
What I do is I buy spray caps by the thousands. So if the cap clogs or spits on me, it goes right into the garbage. I don't try to clean them with any kind of chemicals, or I just change the cap, shake the can again, because that's residue within the can that clogs the caps. And that's due from not shaking the can, because what happens is the pigment settles to the bottom if you don't shake a spray can. And so you shake it really well, you mix that stuff up, and you should never have a problem unless the can has been sitting for a long time. And then you got like that little spits of residue.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Louis.
Thank
Zimad,
you.
always a pleasure.
On another note, I painted a car. I painted a car like last week. And on my Instagram this week, sometime coming up, the car is going to be traveling throughout the city. So it should be fun. It's a collaboration I did with 5 or 6 artists. Al Diaz, Chris Robots Will Kill, Kit 17, Cards from Silver Tuna Studio, Greg De La Haba. That's 5 artists and me. And yeah, it's a beautiful car. It's one of those 3-wheel, and it's it's going to be roaming around the city. So on my Instagram page, I will be posting where the car will be if anybody's in the area and want to check it out.
And if you want to follow Zimad, you really can just put Zimad into your Google search, and Louis Lamboy will come out, as well as his Instagram.
Yeah, Zimad_art.
_
And you'll see more of me on here. I remember a couple of years ago, Barry had hit me up about coming on his earlier talks, but like I was so like crazed and doing so much work and traveling that I never got a chance to come on. But now that I'm still in the space in my head is still don't go out too much. And, it's still that COVID, in my head. It's like, I don't want to get sick. I better stay home. I'd rather stay home and create. And if any gallery wants to come see my work, they usually come to my studio and we set up visits, which Barry, you have to come to my studio one day,
Yes, I will. I will. You're both very prolific, and I think we're all envious of all the names that you mentioned. And you weren't name dropping, but these were all the companies that you work with. And, it was a range from Red Bull, State Farm, a hotel in Switzerland, a billboard in England. You've come a long way from a 14-year-old running into a tunnel to.
I've been very blessed. I've been blessed. I've been at the right place at the right time. This is just scratching the surface with me. I pulled these things out, and I know I was short on time. So I did tell you sometime during the week that I do these talks for FIT to the students, and sometimes the talks last 3 hours. And it's just me going on and on and on, and slideshow behind me, just pictures and pictures that I'll show them 100 shots of the things I've done. These are some of the things that I've done, but there's so much more. I know we're short on time, and I wanted to breeze through it so we could actually talk a little,
Well, the comments are very nice in the chat. Travis Lindquist, who will be presenting down the road, said that was great. Nice to get the insight and the history. And yes, it's a history that everybody is going to know. I like to say subculture is not really subculture, it's sort of for culture. It's in front of the culture. And graffiti and hip hop are the front of our culture. We call them sub. Even skating, all these things really rise to the front, and then you watch the rest of the culture follows it. So it's not really a subculture, it's sort of the lead culture.
You end up within the culture, you end up developing and just creating new stuff that is bringing the culture to the next level in the art world.
Yes.
There's things now where there's 3D sculptures and lawn sculptures that are 20 feet high of steel, and it's based off of graffiti. Phase 2 was one of those innovators who created these giant sculptures. Kenny Scharf, a friend of Keith Haring, who also does a lot of these large scale sculptures that are based off of graffiti, and they're bringing it to just another level in the art world. We don't consider it graffiti because we're not vandalizing, but at the same time, it's got the elements of graffiti. And that's what I try to base my art on, not being a graffiti artist or graffiti writer, but an artist who uses graffiti, from what I learned as a kid, incorporated into my works.
A lot of people say the same about photography. They'll be quick they'll shy away from saying they're a photographer, and they'll say, I use photography as part of my tools as an artist, because they don't want to be labeled. And I do respect that. Often the subtleties of differences are very important. A lot of that's lost in our texting and chatter. But when we're face to face with people, we can sort of get those inflections and those little differences, and they are very important. This has been enjoyable. Thank you all for your time. Next week, we have Damian Crisp, and after that, Melody Provenzano. Both of them are from Tennessee, which don't ask me how that happened, but we'll hear, and it should be an interesting time as well. Melody, when she comes on in 2 weeks, you'll notice some odd similarity to Zimad. We did a practice, both Zimad and Melody, and they're both their own artists coming from different fields, but she highlights her own iconographic images. She does them in some sort of a hyper-realistic fashion, and she creates a sort of a celestial space, more with emptiness than with objects. So it'll be interesting to see. That's part of it. We're all artists that are different, but we all share very similar skills, interests, concerns, passions. And it's nice to see someone as varied as Zimad. He's playing in the same game that we all are. Again, a lot of nice comment. Michael Krasowitz says, thank you, Zimad. A wonderful career. Peg Riley, thank you, Zimad. A wonderful presentation and very inspiring. I thank you, and I thank all of you. This is fun. Nice to see some faces and some wingtip chairs that I have not seen, and to see all of you. And look
Thank you
forward
all.
to again and down the road. And keep in mind, I'll keep the Mondays in July and August, but come September, I'll probably move to a Tuesday, assuming that works with everyone. I'll keep mentioning it. We have plenty of time. So good to see you all. Thanks, Louis.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, man.
Bye, buddy.